Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Young at Heart, Mother Goose rhymes, children's poems, songs, and stories to keep us all young at heart. This is session number 22, in which I will be offering the conclusion to Puss in Boots by Charles Perrault, with an English translation by Malcolm Arthur, and these beautiful illustrations by Fred Marcellino that give us a sense of the style and spirit of 17th century France. I'm going to pick up now at the point where I left off yesterday. At last, Puss came to a beautiful castle that belonged to an ogre. He was the richest ogre in all the world, and all the lands through which the king passed belonged to him. Puss, who had been careful to find out all about this ogre, went into the castle and asked leave to call upon him. "What a pity it would be," said Puss, "to be so near to the ogre's castle and not stop and pay my respects." And here we have a wonderful painting of Puss speaking to the servants, asking to be placed into the ogre's presence. What do you think this cat is up to now? Are you starting to remember this story? Well, let's see. Now the ogre welcomed Puss affably, as only an ogre can, and bade him be seated. "I have been told," said Puss, "that you can turn yourself into any sort of animal you please. A lion, for instance, or an elephant." "That is true," said the ogre, "and to prove it, I'll turn myself into a lion." Well, here is the very boastful ogre. There, you see him? Get him a little closer even. There you go. And all the way down on the table, or sitting on a cushioned chair, is Puss. There he is. He looks a little frightened, don't you think? Although, to be honest, our ogre doesn't look all too terrible, does he? There we go. Roar! And look at the ogre now, and the ferocious lion that he has become. What on earth was Puss thinking? There we go. The lion, the room, and a kind of scared little Puss in Boots. In fact, when he turns into a lion, Puss is so frightened, he jumps up, jumps out the window, and runs onto the roof. There he goes, onto the roof. Puss was so terrified at seeing the lion right there in the room that he scrambled up onto the roof, which wasn't easy, because boots are no good for walking on tiles, and it was dangerous besides. However, a little while later, when Puss saw that the ogre was an ogre again, he came down, scrambled down actually, and admitted to the lion that he had given him a bad scare. I think the ogre was very pleased look at the ogre's reaction.
Very pleased. Hey, you know, we all like to be entertaining, don't we? And when people respond strongly to our entertainment, especially if they find us believable, we feel quite proud, don't we? There's a sense of the perspective, the big feet of the ogre at the table, and there is Puss and the ogre, who's now very interested
To see how he's impressed this little cat in boots. When he'd caught his breath, Puss said, You know, I hear that you can turn yourself into small animals, too. A rat, or a mouse, for instance. That seems impossible. It seems impossible, does it? Said the ogre. And a second later, the ogre was gone, and a mouse was scurrying across the floor. Puss pounced, and he caught him, and gobbled him up. There you go. Well, I guess that's what we would expect a cat to do, isn't it? But isn't it hard not to feel a little sorrow for the ogre? I mean, after all, he did welcome Puss into his castle. Although, how else would this cunning Puss be able to show the castle off as belonging to the Marquis de Carabas? Just then, the king arrived at the beautiful castle, and of course he wanted to go in. When Puss heard the sound of the carriage rumbling across the drawbridge, he ran out to meet the king. Welcome, your majesty! Welcome to the castle of the Marquis de Carabas. My dear Marquis, cried the king, is it possible that this castle is yours too? What could be more beautiful than all this courtyard and all these buildings around it? Let's have a look inside. The Marquis gave the young princess his hand. The king led the way, and all went in. In the great hall, they found a banquet that the ogre had ordered for his friends. These friends had just arrived, but when they saw the king's carriage, they ran away. The king was charmed by the Marquis's manners and his estates, and the king's daughter had favored him from the first. So, after 5 or 6 breakers of wine, the king said to the Marquis of Carabas, You have only to say the word, my dear Marquis, and I'll take you for my son-in-law. The Marquis said the word with a low bow. An elaborate bow. A very elaborate bow. And he married the princess that very same day. And here we have gorgeous painting of the banquet. We'll start with this portion. You see the king, and you see the royal couple, and now you can see all the guests, or at least some of them, and we'll move back so you can see the whole picture in the frame. There we go.
And you want to see the royal couple again, don't you? And this is a kind of, where's Waldo? Can you find Puss in Boots? I'm not going to tell you where you can find him, but I think you spied him already. There we go. I just admire this artist, don't you? Well, the couple's married now. What else could possibly happen? All that happened was this. Puss became a great lord and gave up chasing mice, except for just once in a while, all for the fun of it. And here's our last illustration. Puss is now honored with his very own painting, and even the mice in the castle come to admire it. Do, do, do. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. Can anyone tell me what tune that is from? I'll save it for tomorrow and let you know. So thank you so much for joining me for Puss in Boots. And I'm going to close with a rhyme. This one from Shakespeare, because we're now in the season of spring. Depending on where you're living, it might be hard to recognize it, but it certainly is warming up fast here in New York. Our temperature went up to 57. And there's a lot of things blooming already. So we're thankful for signs of spring. I'm only going to do the first verse of this poem from Shakespeare's As You Like It. It's entitled, There Was a Lover and His Lass. There was a lover and his lass, with a hey-ho and a hey-nonny-no, which o'er the green cornfields did pass, with a hey-ho and a hey-nonny-no, in the springtime, the only pretty ring time, when birds do sing, hey, ding-a-ding-ding, sweet lovers, love the spring. There's a tune to go with that, but I'm going to save that for you for next time as well. Have a wonderful Sunday, everyone. Stay healthy, keep safe, and God bless you all. Bye, everyone.